Hey everybody, welcome back to the garage. If this is your first time visiting my channel, please go ahead, click on subscribe, and also click on the bell to receive all the updates and activities on my channel. Also click on the playlist to get you up to speed as far as what has been done to this Ultra and what's going to be going on in the future. Right, so this is the latest in the engine rebuild. In the previous segment, we torqued everything down. We assembled the water pump, we attached the oil pump, we attached the stator and the flywheel. So now we're at the point where we're ready to start putting the pistons on the connecting rods and going from there. Alright, so these are the pistons that came out of the engine. They're in pretty good shape, so I'm just going to reuse them and we'll go from there. Alright, so what I've done is, alright, so on the piston there is there's an arrow. And on this particular engine, the arrow needs to go towards the magneto side. Right. So what I've done is I've already put in a circlip on one side of the piston. So then we'll draw the wrist pin in through it and put it on the connecting rod. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the wrist pin bearing. We're gonna put that in the connecting rod. The connecting rod has already been oiled up. And I put some 2-stroke oil onto the wrist pin, and all we're going to do is we're going to slide the piston over the connecting rod. And we're just going to push it in. So at this point, the only thing we have to do is put the circlip on the other side. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat this process for the remaining 2 pistons. Alright, so we have all the pistons on, all the circlips are in. And so at this point what we need to do is we're going to start working on putting the cylinders over the pistons. But before we do that, we got to put the base gaskets on, and then we got to prep the surface. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take some brake cleaner and a shot rag, and I'm going to basically clean up any oil and whatever that may be on the top of the case. So when we do put the base gaskets on, there won't be any risk of contamination or any type of leaks or anything like that. So just make sure you do that. It takes all of 10 seconds to do, because you will be surprised on how much oil and residue you're going to be transferring when you're working on this. Alright, so one other step that we're going to do before we put the base gaskets on. These are the oiling holes for the crankshaft. We talked about those earlier when we were putting the crankshaft in case. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some 2-stroke oil, and then we're just going to dump it right into those holes, and so we know that the crank is nice and lubricated upon first startup. Alright, so go ahead and put your base gaskets on. Make sure they go on the right way, and you're going to want the writing facing up. Alright, so now that the base gaskets are on, take a final look at everything before we start to slide the cylinders over, because this is really kind of the point of no return. You want to make sure that you oiled everything, everything's nice and clean. You didn't leave anything inside the engine or anything like that. Alright, so with that being said, let's go ahead and grab the cylinders and start sliding those on. Alright, so once you line up your rings with the lands, go ahead and you're going to grab your cylinder. After you put some 2-stroke on it, make sure you get in the right orientation. Exhaust is going to face the other way. And then we're just going to compress the rings. and slide the cylinder down. Alright, so we have all the cylinders mounted, and I have all the nuts on the studs. Right now, nothing is tight, and the reason why is we have to align the 3 cylinders so they're all on the same plane. There's a couple of different thoughts on this. Some people will just torque them down and not do this, but then there's another school of thought. You want to take the exhaust manifold, attach it, and that will essentially put everything in parallel with each other. So when you do put the exhaust manifold on it, you're not going to have any leaks. Because if you look, there is a lot of, well, not a lot, but there is play on the jugs and against the studs. So one thought is, they can be pigeon-toed like that, and then you'll have a leak. So what we're going to do is we're just going to attach the exhaust manifold onto the studs, and what we'll do is we're just going to finger tight it, and what this will do, this will get everything in a straight line. So why don't we go ahead and do that now. Alright, now that we have the exhaust manifold finger tight up against the cylinders, now everything is in a straight line. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a 14mm wrench, and we're just going to snug up the base studs, or the base nuts. So essentially it locks them down, but they're not torqued, so we can then take the exhaust manifold back off and then do a final torque on them. And all we're doing is just snugging them up. We're not torquing them, we're just doing it so they don't move. Now we're going to remove the exhaust manifold. So the way that you want to use this is you want to have it 90 degrees to the axis of the torque wrench. It cannot be like this, because if you do, you're extending the fulcrum point on the torque wrench, and your readings will not be accurate. So what you have to do is you sweep it to 90, and then you're going to torque it down like that. Because you got to remember, if you do it like this, your center line of the torque wrench will be a infinite line, left and right, and it doesn't matter if it's 3, 6, 12 feet, whatever, because it's on the center line of the torque wrench going left to right. It's going to be the same torque setting. So this is what we're going to use to torque down these cylinders to the case. So these need to be torqued down to 28 foot-pounds. We're going to start at 20 and go from there. And these get torqued in a crisscross fashion, just like anything else. So you put it on there. Be careful not to move it off of 90. Alright, so we did our first torque to 20. Do the final one at 28. Okay, now that we have the cylinders torqued down to the case to 28 foot-pounds, now we're going to attach the heads to the individual cylinders. Alright, so if you look at each cylinder, there's 2 alignment pins, right? And they correspond with the 2 alignment on the head. So if you also look at the head, there's a arrow. That arrow goes towards the intake. So it is possible to put on 2 ways, but Polaris wants you to put the arrow towards the intake. So we've replaced the O-rings on the head, right? And we also replaced the O-rings. Replaced the O-rings on the cylinder as well as the head. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna drop it on there, and there you go. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna repeat the process for all 3 heads, and then we're gonna torque them down to, I believe it's 28 foot-pounds. I'll go check the spec, but I believe it's 28 foot-pounds. Alright, so the heads get torqued down to 25 foot-pounds. We're going to start off with 15. Alright, so now we're doing the final torque of 25. Alright, so the next step is you're going to take your coolant cover, put a new O-ring in that one as well, spray some WD-40 on that so when you're putting it on it doesn't tear it, and just come straight down. There you go. So at this point all we're going to do is we're just going to insert all the coolant cover bolts, and we're going to torque those down between 17 and 20 foot-pounds. Now go ahead and install your exhaust gaskets, and now we can put the exhaust manifold on again. Alright, so I went ahead and pretty much finished everything off camera. Put the coolant tube on with the new gaskets and everything else and tightened those down. Torqued down the flywheel, put the recoil cup and the recoil back on, and the car boots and the reed valves and the oil injection. All that stuff was pretty straightforward, and to be perfectly honest with you, if you made it this far, that stuff isn't going to be an issue for you guys. Alright, so at this point we're ready to go ahead and put it back in the sled and get it fired up and bled and everything else, and hopefully it'll be going in there for the last time. Alright, if there's any questions, comments, concerns, go ahead and leave in the comments box. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And as always, thanks for watching and have a great day. See ya.